Aircraft are more technologically advanced today than they have ever been, and more detailed weather information is at our fingertips than ever before. Yet the rate of accidents in the helicopter and general aviation community remains relatively constant. One of the leading causes of accidents is inadvertent flight into instrument conditions, otherwise known as IIMC. Unfortunately, such accidents are usually fatal. A basic search for these tragic accidents on the NTSB's Aviation Accident Database yields pages of results. Investigation reports reveal that many of the pilots involved in these accidents had thousands of hours of experience and training to prepare them to avoid or recover from such situations. Sometimes, that is not enough. Denver Pletcher is a veteran air medical pilot with over 3,800 hours in both military and civilian helicopters who, like many other pilots, thought his experience and good judgment could keep him and his crew safe. But one dark night, he found himself inadvertently flying into IMC in a helicopter that was not equipped for such conditions. The helicopter was, however, equipped with a light aircraft recording system that captured the entire flight, including the IIMC encounter that nearly resulted in a tragic accident for Denver and his crew.
I'm here today to explain my side of what happened, and hopefully someone else will see maybe something out of this that'll keep them from getting into the situation I got myself into. I joined the Air Force in '71 and went to helicopter training school at Fort Walters, then to Fort Rucker, and on to many different places in the Air Force. Our motto was that others may live. And I always took that to heart. I feel like I gave of myself to help someone else. I retired out of the Air Force in 2002 and started EMS until 2011.
In February of 2011, Denver was on his last shift of his scheduled duty week. Not much had happened that week. There wasn't a single flight. So when the flight request for a patient transport came in, Denver was eager to take the flight.
We got a call about 3 o'clock in the morning. I checked weather. Weather was no good because of the clouds. They asked us if we would just go, and we had an alternate landing spot. So we took off. We said, okay, let's go look and let's go see. And we got up. There's no way. I can't do this. We called comms and we canceled and turned around and headed home. Well, half the way back, comms calls us up and says, can you maybe go to the alternate landing spot that was clear there, because we had flown over it on the way out and on the way back.
Denver and the crew made the decision to land at the alternate landing spot requested by the communication center. Denver knew the weather was clear there, as they had flown near the location on the way to the originally requested landing spot.
And we landed near a football stadium. The football stadium was just out the right door. There was this gymnasium building off to my left, and there was a spotlight that was lighting the area out there. And I'd been looking at that spotlight and thinking about it, and kind of like, it's so dark behind it. It's just black. It's pitch black.
After several minutes sitting on the ground waiting for the patient to arrive, Denver noted low-level fog developing and asked the medical crew to keep an eye on the fog and haze forming around the nearby lights. Time was of the essence.
I said, look guys, if you see those lights and if they start hazing around them, we're out of here. We're going. So, okay, we got it.
While on the ground waiting, Denver called dispatch to find out how much longer it would be before the ambulance arrived with the patient. The crew was growing concerned about the developing fog.
They're telling me, yep, there's clothes around the lights. It's okay, let's go. Get on board. We're leaving now. Because I could look west and I could see.
Without the patient on board, Denver had already lifted the helicopter into a hover for a departure to the west back to base when they noticed the ambulance had finally arrived with the patient.
So I said, oh shoot, what are we going to do? Well, we can grab him and run, boss. I said, well, all right, grab him and run, but hurry. Well, 7 minutes later, we're ready to go. So I cranked up, pull pitch, took off, and I turned around and headed west. All of a sudden, I don't know why, but my attitude indicators precessed a little bit. It just kind of dropped to one side. And I thought, oh, don't be messing with me now. And I know that I've got to have an attitude indicator to fly instruments, period, Don. I know that's got to be there. Because I'd thought about going into it a little bit. So I reached up and pulled to cage it, and it did reset. But I never looked at it again. And when I did that, we were in the soup. It just flopped right over the top of us like it was a blanket. I'm going west. I think I'm going west. I wasn't real sure at that moment. I'm in black, and I saw this light, and it looked so much like the light on the ground. So I'm thinking, this isn't right. I know there's these stanchions on my right side. If that's the light I think it is, there's a football field right there, and I'm going to run into those poles. I know I'm going to do it. I didn't look at my altitude. I didn't even think about it. So I moved left to get away from that so I could go and fly away from it.
As Denver struggled to understand his situation, the helicopter was in a steep climb, gaining altitude. Instead of turning to the left like he thought, Denver's inputs resulted in a dive back towards the ground, followed by other extreme maneuvers.
So the second time we come up, and there's that light again. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to get away from that light. So I did it again. Tried to get away from where I thought I was. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck is going on? What's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture? And it dawned on me, get on the gauges. So I got on the attitude indicator, I leveled the wings out, I checked my power, I had my power in, it was going well. And I was turning the aircraft from, I think it was going north at the time, and I was turning, trying to get back to the west, because I knew it was clear out that direction. And on the gauges, we climbed up, popped out. Oh, it's great. It didn't dawn on me until the very next day that that light I saw was the moon. And it looked just like that light with all the black in behind it. And it just blew my mind.
Denver completed the mission and returned to base. But the perilous encounter that occurred that night continued to concern him and his crew.
Now it's shift change, almost. So I walk in, and our lead pilot's there ahead of me, and daylight's just come up on us. And I looked at him and said, "Boss, I think I screwed up." He said, "What do you mean?" And I tried to explain to him a little bit of it. He said, "Well, I think you did just fine. You're here. And you took your patient, you brought the aircraft home, you did good." I said, "No, there's more to this than I did good." "No, sir." He said, "Well, you're off shift, go home." The poor young guy and young gal that were my crew that night, they actually told the lead pilot, "We don't want to fly with him. Something's not right."
Following the incident, Denver's management chose to reevaluate his competency as a pilot. A company check airman evaluated Denver's overall competency, and specifically his inadvertent IMC recovery techniques. At the completion of this evaluation in a simulator, the check airman approved Denver to resume his flight duties. Denver's story isn't an isolated incident. Too often, pilots find themselves in unsafe situations. It's seldom due to a lack of basic piloting skills, but rather circumstances, human factors, and/or a lack of recent, relevant training, which lead to poor decisions that can sometimes result in an undesirable outcome, or even worse, tragedy.
A lot of what ultimately the decisions are hinged upon when you take or don't take a flight are very subjective. We devise systems to help the pilot analyze all of these items like a risk assessment form. The interesting part is the pilot is often the least qualified person, not often, always the least qualified person to assess his or her ability to fly the machine safely.
I feel like I'm just like everybody else. I would have, and I did say, I'm okay. Even regardless of this is my last night on my shift, I'm tired. The risk assessment was kind of out the door. It didn't really count in my mind because I'm there. I'm going to do this. It's my job. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Not in 32 years of being in this business has a pilot ever told me, I can't do this. We, as an industry, must recognize and seek measures which can help the pilot maybe not be his own evaluator, but have other crew members be the evaluator of the pilot. Maybe it's dispatch which is the evaluator of the pilot. Or maybe it is a better risk assessment form, a risk assessment form which really does delve deeper into the pilot's safety of flight.
The risk assessment is a formalized effort by the pilot and/or organization to examine, quantify, and document the risks associated with a particular flight and assist in the go, no-go decision to take a flight. The ability of a pilot or crew to turn down a flight for any safety reason and there be no negative repercussions from their management is a good indication that safety is the #1 goal in their company or organization.
When we turn down flights, we oftentimes review the circumstances surrounding that. But interestingly enough, I've never had to justify taking a flight. But that doesn't mean it was the right decision or the right flight. So we need to learn from the flights which are successful, but maybe it was just luck which made them successful. I am so impressed with Denver's honesty, integrity, and willingness to share his story, which it's not a story that I think most people would be comfortable sharing. We, as an industry, can learn so much from what occurred there that evening. If we fail to do that, we're missing an opportunity to improve our industry.
Giving the pilot and crew the ability to say no and providing a better framework to assess their readiness and safety decisions are only the first part. Having objective data and the ability to review what took place during a flight is also highly beneficial to enhancing safety.
One of the biggest challenges we face as accident investigators in the helicopter and general aviation community is simply a lack of information available during the accident investigation because unlike the airline industry, we don't have cockpit voice recorders, flight data recorders installed on our aircraft typically because they're so expensive, they're so heavy, and they're very complex to install and certify. So something I'm really proud of that our company has done is joined up with a company called Apario Systems to develop a light aircraft recording system that can be used for proactive flight data monitoring as well. It's called the Vision 1000. And we've had a couple of accidents where the Vision 1000 has captured data and it completely changes the way we look at an accident. You know, it puts you there in the cockpit so you can evaluate the entire decision-making process of the pilot, all of the external conditions that we could never imagine as accident investigators.
On the night of Denver's incident, the AS-350 helicopter he was flying was equipped with an early version of the Vision 1000, which contains accelerometers to record the helicopter's attitude and flight path.
When I found out that the aircraft had accelerometers on the thing, I was just in awe. When I saw the video, I saw what happened. It helped, I don't want to say closure, but it helped me to understand a little bit more of what I did. And I think it should be there because it helps us be honest with ourselves and take care of our machines.
Devices like the Vision 1000 allow us to review incidents like Denver's that none of us would ever know about. So for every accident that happens, there are probably hundreds of events like Denver's. With this type of device in the future, we can know about that, understand the cause, fix that, and prevent that ultimate accident from happening.
If we seek to find a solution, we must first seek to understand the problem. To minimize the occurrence of future inadvertent IMC accidents and work toward eliminating them altogether, objective data must be analyzed to identify and understand the decision-making process and factors that lead to such accidents. That information then must be used to provide realistic and relevant scenario-based training to better prepare pilots and crews for the situation and decisions they will encounter. As with all pilots, the dream of flying never leaves. With Denver's story, he chose to retire early and walk away from his love of flying to deal with the uncertainties and concerns he had about his own safety. He wanted to share his story so that others may live.